coming right there.
Guys, this week's sponsor is the National Association for Gun Rights, with Joe Biden and his gun control lobby working overtime to strip you guys your constitutional rights. I hope that you'll get involved with our friends at the National Association of Gun Rights. 2021, National Association of Gun Rights led the fight to pass constitutional carry in 5 states. Right? They're backed by more than 4.5 million members and supporters. It's the only grassroots-led, no-compromise gun organization fighting to restore our rights, right? At the government level, they really are. How do we support them? You and I. You subscribe to their YouTube channel, National Association for Gun Rights. Anyways, I want to thank them for their support of this video.
All right, welcome back to Tactical Rifleman. Randy, Rawhide, Wurst, Imri, we're talking knives. We like knives. Hopefully you like knives too. This time we have a bunch of larger fixed blades that are more bushcrafty or outdoorsy or camp knives or big ass fighting knives or whatever. We had a bunch of things specifically sent to us. Again, this is not our collection of knives that are our favorite knives. These were sent to us to kind of give you guys opinions on. Here's our opinions. I think we're going to start from the bottom up again, Randy. What do you think?
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
Good.
What's our bottom here?
Browning.
Browning.
I hate to say it.
I agree.
I like Browning, but go ahead.
Well, you want to get us kicked off? Honestly, it's not a bad knife.
It's not, but it's really only useful around the camp or gutting and working on cleaning animals, skinning them, stuff like that. It really does.
Decent hunting knife,
yeah,
I would say, although we don't know what steel it is. And that bothers me. Here's what really bothers me about this, right? These are mass produced. Awesome. Most of this shit's mass produced. Very cool. The fit and finish on this is crap, right? I run my fingers down here and all these pins stick out, right? So if I run my fingers down here, I feel the pins stick out. If I run my finger across the top here or the bottom of the grip, right, it's not the right size. And this, it's wood. And a lot of you are going to say, oh, well, wood expands and contracts. You're right. This is stabilized wood that doesn't expand and contract. They essentially, under pressure, actually vacuum. I'm sorry, they vacuum out all the air bubbles and epoxy glue type material or resin goes in there. So this doesn't expand and contract. Somehow they managed to screw up the workmanship. But it's sharp. So far it's cut pretty well, right? I mean, all the knives, as usual, we're cutting meat, we're cutting rope. With these, we're doing all kinds of splitting, right? You're splitting.
That's the one I couldn't split. It's just too short.
Simply because it was too short, right? I mean, that doesn't make it a bad knife. That makes it a knife you don't like because you split a lot of wood.
Yeah, I don't like, so this makes it a bad knife. Okay?
Fair. I'm with you. All right, let's move on. Second from the bottom, what do you think? I'm going with this Tonto.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
Go ahead.
You want to yap about it?
Go with the Tonto. It's in front of you.
Okay. So what do we have to say about this? It's not a bad knife, right? The fact that this is second from the bottom is, I don't know, I guess arbitrarily they sent us some pretty good knives in this batch. So Tonto blades, let's talk about it. What are the benefits of the Tonto? Other than it looks cool and Cold Steel started making them in, the 80s or whatever and then decided that they wanted to not let anybody else do it. This is more of an American Tonto, right? That sharp cut there, which by the way, if you're hand making a knife is incredibly difficult to do. It lends itself very well to stabbing, right? Because unlike the Wharncliffe where the cutting edge is straight, but then from the spine of the blade, right, you get that line going down towards the cutting edge where the tip is. This is backwards. So what you're getting is the tip is actually at the thickest cross section of the steel, making this tip as strong as it can be, considering the thickness of the actual cross section of the knife. It's pretty comfortable in the hand.
Yep.
I don't like these little grooves they've taken out because that's where my thumb sits and I want it thicker there. You know, thin it out other places, fine, but the scales I actually find quite comfortable.
Yeah, I do. This would only be a knife that I'd have on my gear, on my combat gear, okay? Use that for my right hand to stab with and stuff like that. But also, I don't want to do it because I would hit Jesse there, but I could take this knife like that and plant this sucker right on him in a heartbeat throwing it. So this actually has dual purposes for me. I do like this knife. I could stick in that wall right now. Mm-hmm. So it for a fighting knife, it's just got techniques I like with it. It's going to puncture good with it. Yep. I can bring back and draw back across the guy. I can also use the pressure points of the metal part there, mm-hmm. but it'll also throw. I can feel that balance out, and that's how I would do it from here. It's going to be close. Mm-hmm. So actually, I do like it. I'm not that fond of making their sheaths where they combine. Is this that?
Kydex.
Kydex?
Yeah.
I just don't like the, what do you call this material? This is
the canvas Cordura, something like that. Yeah.
I don't believe in mixing the two. I like it having just one. One of the, let's see, one of these, that one over there has a clip on the back. I like that for going on my belt.
That's a blade tech.
Right. I don't like this hanging down low. I don't like this mechanism here that's going to keep the knife in place. This one fits pretty tight without it, so I wouldn't need that at all. But when I go to grab a knife, like I said, it's going to be on my combat thing, on my belt, then this is here. When I go to grab it, I've got this here. If I go to grab that knife, for instance,
well, we'll get to this one, but
okay.
Yeah.
But if I go to grab it, we'll talk about it later. Look, it's exposed. When I grab it, I got the knife. I don't have a piece of that. I'll let you put that back.
Yep.
I don't have this cloth in my way. And that's a bad design in my opinion. It has some versatility.
Of course, the reason they do that, right, is to actually drop the sheath lower, right? For a lot of people, you know, if this just had a clip, let me put the knife in the holster, right? But if in the sheath, I'm sorry. If this didn't have this and it didn't have this textile piece, right? And all it had was a clip like the Blade Tech clip, this knife would be sitting a lot higher on the belt, right? So if my belt is in line with this, you know, that sometimes that feels like too high of a draw, right? And that's why they added it. Honestly, I don't hate it. I don't hate this design, but what you do have to understand is with it being fixed this way to your belt, you have to use this to tie it off to something lower. Otherwise, it'll jerk the whole sheath up, right? Overall, not a bad knife from Buck. Okay, what's next?
As far as the knife goes. Next, I'm not a really fan of buoys, but cold steel, I love cold steel. We were able to take and split with this knife. And it split just perfect. We were able to cut the rope with it. You were able to cut flush with it. It really doesn't have a ton of versatilities because the length of the blade is kind of short, but it's a very tough knife, fits in your hand well. I wouldn't necessarily use it for a fighter, but for a knife I'd have on my belt to go hunting with and stuff like that, I think it would work well with it. This type of molding that you have here, it sticks to your hand. That jimping.
Yeah, there's no jimping.
I'm sorry, guys, man. He's got me into that, and that's how we hold our thumbs, and it guides your blade. I know where that is. I just don't care for knives that don't have that on her. But other than that, it's a damn good blade. It cut perfect. It's split. It's a pretty down good knife.
It's got a stout tip on it. It's kind of a drop point, miniature Bowie looking design. For years, I have really liked. I've really liked Cold Steel's rubberized grips. They sit real well in the hand. You have a bit of a guard, right? The guard isn't incredibly well pronounced, but it's there enough only on the bottom. And I hate top guards, right? For the same reason that You probably do, which is the thumb goes up here. And it's Zanmai steel, which is, cold steels, whatever. I don't know what the metallurgy of it is, but I do know that I've had a bunch, and it's a good steel. It works well. All right, next up. I know, okay. I think we might be on the same page here. So, this knife is from Scallywag. Now, we have a few knives from them, and we have not liked the other ones for the most part.
Yeah.
This is a good knife.
Yes,
This is a good knife. We both like it. There are still things I don't like about it. But Randy, I'll let you take over this because you're kind of more in the bigger knife realm.
Okay. There's several things that I can do with this. This fits my parameters where a knife can do several things at one time, not just one thing. When we split wood with it, it did really good. I can chop limbs with it. It's perfect when we cut rope with it to cut. And when you want to cut on the meat, it cut the meat perfect. When you can see on the blade how it goes straight and then curves around like this, so when you're cutting with it, it's going to hit here and it's going to dig in here on this part here. It's perfect and it'll stab. How I use a bigger knife like this is it's on my left side and I pull it out and I use it to block with and I can still come in and cut with it. Okay, I fight with two knives, not just one. Now, let's talk about in the woods. We know I can split with it. We know I can chop with it, right? Now, where I come from, we have grizzly bears, and grizzly bears kill people. They're not like, well, black bears will do the same thing, but grizzly bears are pretty active about it. You need, if you do your research, you need about 9 inches. So not only can I work this as a tool to clear areas, split wood to make tools and stuff with, but it's got enough that when because I'm going to get my butt kicked no matter what a grizzly bear attacks me. With this in my hand, I'm going to stick it right through there, and with that point, I'm going to get it up in there, and he's going to break contact. I don't know when he's going to die, but he's not going to stand there and still munch on
Randy,
me.
you're about the only person I would ever believe when you say a comment like that. Because anybody else I would tell, yeah, okay, fight a grizzly bear. Go for it.
I know
But
people.
with you, I actually kind of believe it.
I know, but people have challenged me on stuff, and then they come out to find out later when they got their ass kicked. I wish I would have paid attention to what you told me.
Right.
Anyway,
Let's talk about a couple of the problems that we've identified with this, and they're not necessarily major, but I want people to look for these things, and I want makers to think about these things. So when you're making scales, right, these are all of these are full tang knives, meaning the blade steel goes all the way through, right? And then you have a scale on this side and a scale on this side for the grip. This is pretty thick. This is well over 1/4 inch thick, which I like, especially on a big knife. It's D2 steel, awesome. Here's what I don't like. We have sharp corners on the grips here. We have sharp corners on all the bottom of the grip. So right where your fingers close on the knife, you have these almost 90-degree angles. Anything that goes on this side of the blade, on your hand side, should have soft edges, right? It shouldn't be the stabby crap. Stabby crap goes from here forward. You can punch, you can hit with this. This is called the puño, okay? And that's nice. You got a little retention there for your finger. You have a finger choil to move up here. Now, this is not a fighting thing, right? You're not going to put your finger up here when you're doing very aggressive things because your finger is very close to the cutting edge, and this knife is quite sharp.
Yes.
But this is helpful because if you're doing more gentle things, right, finer actions with a bigger knife, it gives you a little more control forward on the knife. But these sharp 90-degree angles on the handle, to me, that's why it's low on the list. Other than that, it's a great knife.
It didn't have, what do you call that again?
No jimping.
Yep.
No jimping. But, I can excuse it here, and I'll tell you why. Because I can see why they would think, especially with, with these clearances here for your fingers, I can see where they would see this as more of just a hacking knife, right?
Yeah, what they're not seeing, though, is when I'm going to chop with this knife, if I don't have my thumb up here, I don't have the control of where I'm going to make it hit, and this guides it better, and that's one of the purposes for it. So it should be there. They just overlooked that part of it, but it actually, for this scallywag, it's actually a pretty decent knife.
I agree. I like this. I like this. All right, let's let YouTube take you on a advertisement adventure, and we'll be back in a minute. This ugly color, which you will never lose in the forest, because nothing in nature looks like this, is actually a good knife.
Yes.
If it wasn't such a heinous choice of colors, which I was just told recently, oh, well, all the kids nowadays, they like all these colors. And I'm like, yeah, nobody likes this shit. Having said that, this is a really good knife. SE, I believe it's SE. I don't know if it's ESE or SE. I don't know what the hell they're like. I don't know what to call them, but it's a good knife. Other than the fact that there's nothing new about it, right? I mean, it's your traditional Bowie design. The bevels go all the way up, right? There's no, let's see, right? There's no primary bevel that stops halfway up. So the bevel goes all the way up, making the knife sharper considering its cross section. Comfortable in the hand. It's got I call it a Coke bottle. It's a slight Coke bottle shape where it starts thin here and it kind of bulges out in the middle of your hand and then gets narrow and bulges out just a little bit at the hilt or near the puño. Like it, again, finger choil, right? Finger choil right behind the back of the cutting edge. Also something that I like, and again, this is for doing gentler things with a knife, not fighting, right? If you think that you're gonna put your finger up here for more control when you're fighting, your trigger finger's in for a rude surprise. Brandy, what do you think of this?
Well, I think this knife combined, because it's so well built, and I do like this, combined with a tomahawk or a hatchet combo in the woods is excellent, because you can do a ton of things with it, but you can't do any chopping. Splitting, we did splitting with it, but it's small that you can do with it. But I still could do some with it. But it's versatile in the fact that it's got the jimping that I like. So when I put my thumb forward to do work and stuff like that, or if I want to cut something, I know where my blade is. All right, I got it. What did you call that little
finger choil? CHOIL.
Okay. So now if I need to do fine stuff come in like I'm skinning a deer or something like that, it's got that capabilities. It fits good in the hand. The palm swell is good in it. The steel is good in it. It's got a really good balance to it. This knife, if I carried it, I'd just carry a tomahawk with it because I really wouldn't want to do too much splitting with it because it's short. But it did, and it split wood good fine with it. So it's a knife that I would carry out in the woods if I had a tomahawk with me.
If you wanted to be seen from outer space.
Yeah, but then, you know, let's say I dropped it. I could find it. Things happen.
Fair. You know, they make UV paint for that.
Yeah.
Different conversation. All right, let's talk about the kukri.
Well, I don't know if I can say this, but all my relatives have bought this knife. I own this knife myself. I love the design of it. I love the feel of it. They did a really good job. It stays in my hand. This is not necessarily one that I'd use for fighting because it doesn't have the guard to protect me, and it has this one up here, but they're soft. So using my thumb to come up forward, it won't allow me to do that. It's the one thing it won't do. But when I'm chopping, it does extremely well. If you go to cut with it, you're going to draw it, so it's going to hit this here, and then it's going to dig in deep right in here. I love that part. But when I'm chopping with it, if I hit this here, this hits before my fingers do here. Now I'd want to hit.
Way. So he's saying if you make contact here first, right?
Yeah. So this is going to hit, and your majority of your work is going to be done on this part of the blade, and I loved it, and it works perfect, or I wouldn't be buying these. Now, one of the other things that I really like about it, if I needed to make this a spear, can you see the two holes in this? There's one here and one here. What's missing on the other knives? They don't have that. How do you attach it to your stick so you can make a spear? Very difficult. This knife, you can do that with. This is an all-around really good knife. I wouldn't necessarily use it to fighting with because of these designs that we call this hilt. These parts
The grip. Oh, no, the guard.
Guard.
The guard.
All right, those aren't made to block any type of blade. But as far as working a brush knife and splitting, it was perfect splitting. And I don't think you had any problem cutting any meat. In fact, you cut through bone.
Yeah, yeah.
Cut through bone
Yeah,
with
we
it.
cut right through bone.
Love
Lots of
this.
bones.
I love this puppy. Now, the knife specialist, I'm going to hand it to him and let him talk about it because he knows more about blades and steel and stuff that I do.
Well, I don't think we know what kind of steel this is. Let's see if we can find out, because when you get into bigger blades, your steel choices can vary, right? Sometimes in a smaller blade, a harder steel is okay, but on a bigger blade, typically you want a couple points less of Rockwell hardness because you need a little bit of flex. Because bigger blades, right, you're gonna be hacking, be real aggressive with them. That's one of the things I like about having made, first of all, a very tactile grip, right? It's very grippy, but it's also soft, it's rubberized, and that's kind of cool. Yeah, kukris, I mean, you can use it as a draw knife, right? For fleshing and skinning, and not skinning, but fleshing for sure, or on wood, right?
Making poles, stripping poles down.
Yeah, I mean, everybody needs a kukri, man.
Yep.
Everybody, the Gurkhas, first of all, badass. So this is my favorite knife of this spread. When I first put my eyes on this knife, I went, wow, that thing is heinous. Because it's not. I mean, it's got kind of its pretty characteristics, but I thought it was ugly because I see this and I go, nobody's hand is fitting on that. That's not how the inside of somebody's hand looks when they're comfortably holding a knife, right? So, and as a knife maker, that's how I look at it is, I'll look at a knife and try to guess if it's comfortable or not inside the hand. Well, it turns out this thing is so damn comfortable, I never want to let it go, right? This is from Off-Grid Knives, and it's called the Tracker. D2 steel, like I've said a ton of times, I love D2 steel. It's wonderful. There's no reason to pay 3 times as much for some steel just because it's got more letters and numbers in it. Okay, D2 is awesome. Jimping.
Yep.
In the right place, right where my thumb sits, right? Plenty of jimping, aggressive jimping, not deep, but the corners are rough. That's what you want from them. Yeah, it's great. And, so you have a very wide blade, right? It's not long, but it's wide as opposed to thick. This is your thickness, right? But the width of your blade, this is kind of unusually wide for this short of a blade. But it's got a lot of ass behind that cutting edge. So, you got steel behind that cutting edge. So if you're being aggressive, again, this is not a fighting knife, right? It's more of a bushcrafty kind of knife. There are some things, if you want to sit there and drill holes with it, probably not your best choice for a knife. But look at this belly, right? Look at that drop point belly. That curve, oh man, you grip this up here and you can skin for days, right? So hunting knife, awesome. D2 stays sharp forever. Also, by the way, a downside of D2, because it stays sharp forever, it takes forever to sharpen.
Yeah,
right? Those are things we need to know. So yeah, I think it fits so beautifully in the hand. And get this, these are super affordable. I actually checked it out. I don't know what every knife on the table costs. These are super affordable, I'm telling you. They're in the $100 range. That's unheard of for like a nice knife.
Yep.
So this is my favorite on the table.
Now, I'm not going to go over all the stuff that he did, but I like the thickness of it. Not necessarily too much of the blade, but it actually works well, but it's thick here. And so I split with this, and it's split like a piece of cake. And this is a really strong knife. Let's say I got in the bind and I needed to dig a hole. I could dig a hole with this and know that this knife blade is going to hold up.
Really good point.
or if I were up in Wyoming where we have the ice flows, and for some reason I was dumb enough, like when I was a teenager and got trapped up there, I could be taking that and sticking it in there and get myself up and, you know, digging a place where I could put a
Yeah, it's so
ketone
wide,
in.
it's kind of like a shovel, huh?
This is a very well-made knife. I do like it. If I carried it, I'd have a tomahawk or something else to go with it. But I love this puppy, and you're right. It fits your hand. I love that knife.
Yeah, that's going in my on my hunting checklist from now on.
All right, guys. Now we're gonna get into the cold steel, and the actual name of this one is the Outdoorsman.
It's pretty
Okay.
big across the front.
Okay. Let me clarify. What friggin' outdoorsman wants to use this knife outdoors? Give me a break. Now, just having said that, we had to run some of our tests, and it split wood really well. I was surprised it did that. It did it perfect. It cuts the rope easily on the blade and back here, and when he used it to cut flesh wood and stab wood, this was phenomenal. This is a fighting knife. This is one I'd have on my belt or I keep in my vehicle that I could get to. Okay, I love the balance of it, and yes, I can throw it. I could throw this puppy right now and make it stick. I love this feel of this knife. I like the rubber grip. It stays in there, and if I needed to crush his thumb with the, what do you call this thing?
Puño.
Yeah, what he
Spin.
said. Bam! I come down there and smash it. I just love this knife. And I have this little part here, and you call that the guard?
The guard?
Yes, guard. God, I got this expert. I got to check with him. I can actually stop a blade. So if I had it back this way and came across and blocked your knife, it would actually stop it right there. So this is a fighting knife to me. It's not one I would take out in the woods, all right? But I love it for what it can do, and what it can do is fight for me, all right? And I can actually throw it. It has the balance that I can feel in it. I can make it stick. I don't want to get into throwing knives because there's some tricks into that, but I love the feel of this, the balance of it, and I like the thickness of the blade, and it just outperformed. Well, I love this puppy. I'm sorry.
Yep. No, I like these cold steel blades as well. What I like about it, first of all, aesthetics, right? Aesthetically, this is, albeit modernized, it's very close geometry to a lot of Japanese shapes, right?
Yes.
That curve, you know, when we're talking about tantos, right? We talked about the American tanto before. With that steep corner right there, right here, that's a modified tanto or an American tanto, okay? A Japanese, the old Japanese swords, the old Japanese tantos, this is the shape, right? Don't be confused. This is a tanto. Not in size. I'm talking about the shape of the tip.
Yeah.
You have a slight sweep up. If you think about it, when you cut, okay, the longer the blade is, you want a little bit of sweep. And that actually helps you cut. If you look at old cavalry swords, they all have a sweep. You know why? Because they're sitting on their sword, on their horse, and as you run by, if that didn't have a sweep on it, right, it gets stuck in things.
That or
in
bounce,
humans.
Bounce off. I've seen them bounce off the street.
Sure.
Just sort
Yeah.
of bounce.
So you're getting a bit of a gentler entry into flesh, and that helps with cutting sometimes. On a smaller blade, it's probably not quite as relevant, but it certainly is appeasing to the eye, right? Up here, you have a section that's it's actually sharper than it looks. It's zero ground right here, meaning this bevel right here goes all the way up to the top and meets at a zero thickness. So it's pretty sharp. A lot of people call it a bone crusher, right? They'll flip the knife over, and if you have a bone of an animal or whatever that you want to get through, you can really do some damage and get right through bones. So that's kind of a nice option. The jimping here is not jimping, actually. It's a lot more like traditional handmade file work with a round file at this kind of upward angle. So I like that. They gave it a touch that kind of makes it look like maybe somebody at Cold Steel has seen a handmade knife before. Rubberized grip, great knife. Excellent steel, Zenmai steel. Yeah, nothing bad I can say about these knives for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Cool. Well, hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Let us know if there are more knives you want us to review or knife stuff that you guys would like to see. And like always, check us out next week on Tactical Rifleman.
If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter so you don't miss out on anything.